It has never been more obvious. After a brutal, hopefully one-off defensive performance, Kaiden Guhle's return cannot come any sooner, and we have some stats to show that his impact is much bigger than we even anticipate. Somehow that's possible. Yes, we gotta dive into that. Plus, Lane Hutson making insane history, doing something no rookie defenseman has done in 33 years. And finally, we gotta talk about these summer trades with a lot of young names coming up as trade bait for the Montreal Canadiens. All that coming up on this episode of Habs Digest. And Jesse, we're going to start with some trade bait stuff. Now, this stems from an article today by William Boulger. I'll link it down below. Go have a read of it. He mentions a bunch of player names, and we're not going to talk about all of them today, but there's a few of them, Jesse, that, look, when we're talking about landing a 2C for this team, you have to dangle some good talent. And the first guy that I wanted to mention that I know we've been talking a bit about, and some fans may not be ready to talk about this, is Michael Hage. Now, this guy was born to be a Montreal Canadien. I don't want to move him. I'm just going to say that straight up front. Unless you're getting something absolutely unbelievable, I don't want to move him. However, of the prospects that Montreal is semi-likely even to move, that is sort of, I don't know, expendable, I don't even want to say that, he maybe has the most value to other teams. Of course, his draft reaction, like the guy who just wants to be a Montreal Canadien, is super hard to move, but he's one of these guys mentioned, Jesse, because like he is a young center. A lot of teams would want to get him, and sometimes you got to pay a lot. What are your thoughts for giving up Michael Hage in a 2C trade? I can't say I'm a fan, but what do you think?
Everything's happening all at once. I mean, Demidov's coming, our 2C, and we're going to need to get some value to give it back. And we're looking at like which prospects are untouchable and which ones aren't. Demidov, our boy there, is probably in that category. I throw Reinbacher even ahead of a Michael Hage. We love Michael Hage, but again, because of that right-hand D, like Reinbacher is not quite at like that Demidov tier. But in Kent's eyes, you have to feel like he's pretty darn close, and for good reason, right? And we're happy. We know we need that right-hand D. So again, it's like with Michael Hage, he's like, why would we trade this guy when this guy can be our 2C? But again, he's a year at least away. And as this team is looking to kind of get into its window, again, kind of speed is of the essence sometimes. Like you could absolutely see another team that this is what they would need to really kind of take it to another level. I mean, for sure, Michael Hage has done a huge service for us this year of just putting up amazing numbers. We know the history, and of course, that he wants to play Montreal Canadiens. It's a greater asset. You have to feel like that's important in Kent's eyes. It's like, because seems destined to be a Montreal Canadiens, maybe a little bit harder to kind of trade a guy like that. But let's face it, like, we're talking about a Byfield, we're talking about a Tage Thompson. It's like, we got to get a Hage, we got to get some picks, some prospects. It's going to happen this summer. It's just really a question, Josh, like, who it's going to be. If you're a GM from another team, you have to feel like Michael Hage is right at the top of your list.
Yeah, like you said, if Demidov and Reinbacher are untouchable for Montreal, it's like, who's the next top guy? It could very well be a guy like Hage, right? So as tough as it is to say, he's going to be one of those names that other teams are going to be hunting for. But of the guys that I think Montreal would want to move, like there's a couple defensemen down in Laval that were mentioned in this article that I wanted to talk about, and Adam Engstrom's one of them, and Logan Mailloux is the other. Now, they're both 21 years old. I know they feel like they're a bit of different age, but they're not. They're both 21 years old, although they are 7 months apart in age, and they've both been amazing for Laval. Mailloux with 31 points, 12 goals in 53 games, 27 points in 60 games for Adam Engstrom with that beautiful goal just recently. Do I still have that on the highlight reel? Well, I got Reinbacher. We'll play this through, and I still got Engstrom's goal coming right after this. Jesse, of the guys that Montreal would probably want to look to move out in a deal, you got to think with this blocked blue line, again, with Guhle coming back, with Hutson doing what he's doing, with Reinbacher on his way up, Engstrom and Mailloux are probably the two biggest names on the D-core for sure that could be moved. And honestly, I think Mailloux especially, a lot of teams are willing to take a swing on a 6'3" guy with insane offensive upside.
And again, Mailloux is probably more likely just because he's just a little bit more NHL ready. He's been playing kind of that program here in North America just a little bit longer. And you have to feel like whoever, was kind of trading with them, they're going to want a guy that they're going to be able to, make an impact in their lineup sooner than later. But of course, both guys are going to be interesting here, and they're both likely potentials here because, I mean, when you got a guy like a Matheson, like a Hutson, who are so good offensively, even though Mailloux's that right shot, you have to feel like you're just getting too many styles that kind of go together. Whereas Engstrom, for me, he's offensive, pretty good size, 6'2", 185, amazing mobility. But for me, I find like his defensive game is a little bit more complete there. So if I'm looking at kind of like a team composition, I think Mailloux offers the most interest to another team. And it's also the fact that we don't want too many guys kind of playing the same tune. We need guys to kind of complement each other there. So that's why I see him possibly being at the center of a big trade this summer. Again, it's tough because we've been following these guys for years and we like his game. We definitely feel like he can be a top 4 guy in the NHL, but we're really getting to that point now where it's like, if you don't take advantage, if you don't strike while the iron's hot, it's going to kind of pass you by. So Kent Hughes, we know he's going to be calculated. He's cooking right now, obviously. And the guys in Laval, they know this, right? They're gunning, knowing that their spots are very much in question given on their performances.
Absolutely. There's a lot of names out there. Like, we could go into a couple other names as well, but I want to hear from you guys. Even a guy like Joshua Watt, Owen, Beck, like, we don't know, right? Like, who is Montreal going to trade for this 2C? It's not just going to be picks. There's going to have to be some young guys there. So it's a fun debate, and we'd love to hear all your thoughts down below. But we got to talk about a guy that's still on Montreal right now, Jesse, and that's Lane Hutson. Feel free to pause and take a look at this, and I just want to hammer home how insane this is. I mean, we're talking about these other young defensemen that could come up. This is the rookie defenseman scoring records directly from NHL.com, records.nhl.com. You can see Lane Hutson officially now has more points in his rookie season than Quinn Hughes did. Quinn Hughes had 53. Actually, the camera kind of obscures it. There you go. 53 proof. You can go check it yourself anyway. But Lane Hutson has the most points by a rookie defenseman in the last 33 years. Let that sink in. That is insane. Nick Lidstrom was the last rookie defenseman to have at least 54 points in the season, and he had 60 in 91-92. Jesse, looking at this, there's a real world in the last 12 games. Say Hutson even gets 10 points in the last 12 games. He'll tie himself with Chris Chelios for 6th all time. We're talking a world where if Lane Hutson goes point per game the rest of the way, he will be top 5 for rookie defenseman ever, sandwiched there between Chris Chelios, Ray Bourque, and Phil Housley. How insane is that to you? Because I feel like as much we almost become desensitized to how nuts his stats are at this point.
That's the next watch at this point. The Chris Chelios, Lane Hutson points for rookie defenseman watch. It's going to be wild here. Like, Lane Hutson absolutely refuses to stay in his own lane. He's just going straight into the record books. It's just the type of player that he is. Like, we'll see on this list right now with his 54 points above notable players such as Quinn Hughes, Cale Makar, Maurice Sider, a couple Calder winners there. You know, it's like just absolutely like having a better season, setting himself up right than all 3 of these guys right now. Like, you could say, based off of the type of career that he's having, a lot of people might take it as slander. We're going to say it's pure facts that Lane Hutson is setting himself up for a better career than Cale Makar, which is nuts. Like, as I'm saying that, it sounds so weird to say, but like, he's absolutely doing it. And yeah, he absolutely has a chance to watch Chris Chelios. The way that he's kind of like so competitive, it's funny. Like, guys can say often they're not watching kind of the record books. I just feel like he's a guy that he likes to know kind of what his goals are and what his targets are. Again, he's got 12 games to get 11 points to break it. If there's one thing we know about Lane Hutson, it's that he elevates his game when it matters the most. We're going to have some games down the stretch. And to be honest, Lane Hutson is going to carry this team at certain points. There's going to be some games down the stretch where he's going to get that puck in his own zone and he's going to take full responsibility. He's saying, I'm going to take this up, to that, and I'm going to create just an amazing up, whether it's me taking it all the way to the net like Bobby Orr, or maybe send somebody up for a dish. Like, this is the type of guy, he takes ownership. He's like a Kobe. Like, he wants the puck. He wants the ball in those kind of clutch moments. And I love that. And the fact is, like, we actually have faith in his ability to be able to do that. This season, he's just kind of proven it. And again, showing why he's going to become a leader for this team really quickly. We know he's got the baby face and everything, but like, this guy is all game all the time. So just an amazing example. Josh, I really feel like he can win the Calder. He can beat Chris Chelios. Like, I mean, the accolades are just absolutely nuts this season.
I feel like there's no reason ever for me to doubt him at this point. Like, again, the stats don't lie and the impact doesn't lie. We got some more impact stats to dive into in a second, but like, it actually is crazy, like what he's doing for this team. And we know as the team's heading to the playoffs, or the playoff race down the stretch at the very least, we're still holding on to that playoff spot right now. And we've seen what Lane Hutson does in games when we're down late. He's trying to create the offense all by himself. He gets the minutes. He's a special player, and we're going to keep an eye out. But there's another special guy, Jesse, on Montreal. Another left-hand shot D that we are very anxious to have back on the team, and that's Kaiden Guhle, as he is in the press box. Now, as of today, there's been no changes to the lineups and the skate now as we prepare for the game in Philadelphia tomorrow night. Tomorrow night as the recording of this video, depending on when you're watching, probably tomorrow night. But Kaiden Guhle's not yet skating with the D pairings. Him and Pizzetta are still the extras, but he's coming back soon. And after last night's game, it was a defensive crap show, to say the least. Like, it just wasn't great, right? There was a lot of mistakes, a lot of guys screening their own goalies. Matheson made some mistakes. Savard, Xhekaj, The one pairing that really didn't make mistakes is Hutson Struble, but I wanted to put some stats into context here. This is from the Happy Tall on Twitter. I believe these stats come from Money Puck. But offensively, this season, in terms of goals for per 60 on offense, Struble-Hutson's been the number one pairing with at least 200 minutes together this season. Then it's Matheson-Hutson, no surprise there. That's just a straight-up offensive pairing. And then Guhle-Carrier is third. But Guhle-Carrier is also second in allowing the fewest goals, expected goals against per 60 on the Montreal Canadiens. Once again, with Struble-Hutson first. So first of all, this tells me that Struble's not going anywhere. I would hope he doesn't. This pairing has been dynamite since they've been putting it together. But Guhle is there on the number 2 and 3 best defensive pairings and on the number 3 best offensive pairings. And I feel like sometimes his impact is not spoken about enough by Montreal Canadiens fans. And again, it's going to be tough to choose who comes out of the lineup. Savard has really not been playing well, but again, he has his upside. Xhekaj has been decent, some ill-timed penalties, stuff like that. Struble's probably not going anywhere. It's going to be tough to find him a spot, Jesse, but at this point, you can't deny his impact is going to be massive for Montreal as they continue this playoff push.
And you have to feel like he'll slot in right away on a second pairing.
Yeah.
Martin St. Louis absolutely loves Kaiden Guhle. He also likes vets like Savard, but there's going to be kind of this balance, which will be interesting to see how it plays out with Montreal Canadiens management, where it's like, Martin St. Louis loves vets, like most coaches, guys that are ex-players, right? But then we know that the analytics team within the Montreal Canadiens is getting an increased voice now, and they're kind of in the ear of Martin St. Louis. And David Savard's underlying stats have not, and his puck possession numbers have not been great given, any partner he's really kind of been with this year. That being said, I feel like Xhekaj and Savard will kind of rotate out. But it's interesting to see what the pairings. I think there'll be some sort of combination of Guhle, maybe Matheson on that second pairing, probably Carrier most likely slotting down. Again, Martin St. Louis loves Kaiden Guhle. Probably going to get him on that second pairing there. But again, like Hutson, again, we don't want to just make this the Lane Hutson show all the time. But I mean, like we have to say when we're looking at these defensive pairing and kind of the constitution here, like he's just elevating everybody he plays with, so it allows you a lot of kind of wiggle room in terms of where you're slotting Guhle, like having some known factors. The fact that like right now Lane Hutson and Struble, they're controlling 54.5% of controlled shots right now, and that's above the team average of about 47.8%. Actually, not about, that is the exact specific statistics there. And then as well, like our boy, Lane Hutson and Struble, they're controlling 58% of the expected goals, just doing everything right now. But Guhle, our boy, is going to help us so much. Like, Josh, I love that you love players that help, guys that help this team in ways that you don't always see all the time. Like, you're big on Guhle, you're big on Evans, and
love it.
There's a reason for that. Like, these are the guys that down the stretch is this going to be like so key. All those small little things that we don't see all the time that really leads to winning hockey games. That's what Kaiden Guhle does. He's going to just leave it all out on the line. So really, I'm just so excited to have him back, and I just can't wait to see, that zest that he's going to be playing with once he's back in the lineup.
I'm excited. I'm just hoping that, there's no like hesitation with that quad. Because again, once you hurt yourself, you lacerate your quad, like there is maybe going to be some type of hesitation. But look, Montreal's not going to rush him back, right? They're not going to put him back on the ice in the middle of a playoff push unless he's ready to go, right? And, with this new medical staff, they've been a little more cautious. So I'm excited to see what happens. Look, I'm starting to think, like, before we end this off, do you think there's ever a world where we go back to see that old Matheson-Savard pairing? We run, like, just kind of 3 pairings that can kind of just be deployed evenly. Say you scratch Xhekaj, you go Matheson-Savard, you go Guhle-Carrier, which has statistically been your second best D pairing all year, and then you run Struble-Hutson, which has statistically been your best D pairing all year. Maybe that's a crazy take. I don't think Matheson-Savard really works in 2025, but at the end of the day, you only have a certain number of options, and I'm just wondering if we might see it.
It's interesting. The stats for them, that pairing hasn't quite been the best.
No.
That being said, Martin St. Louis did go into them a lot last year, even when maybe the numbers were saying otherwise. So don't rule it out. How I have it right now, Hutson Struble, that's a mainstay right now. Matheson Guhle. Xhekaj Carrier. Taking out Savard is kind of a tough one. I think Savard and Xhekaj will kind of come in and out. But again, Xhekaj, once these games, they're starting to be playoff type of games. And I actually love, it's not a slight against David Savard. It's that this younger generation has now proven that they're ready to kind of step up. And I like X's ability, just late in games with the physicality that he's been laying of late. He stepped up his game. He's been so much more intelligent. Obviously, being able to have some fights at the right time, that's going to matter down the stretch and really kind of intimidating that other team. That being said, like the most probable thing is probably a Savard carry there again with the NHL. Always go to kind of make the bet on the vets first and kind of go from there. I'm kind of speaking of what I would like, but again, I think Martin St. Louis is not going to be too quick to adapt, and I love that we're talking about icing just the best possible team. Sometimes we just have to put feelings aside, and it's about results now. It's about getting the playoffs. We got 13 games left, and it's about icing that best possible team.
And I think the team's ready to do it, and Guhle's going to help us do it. Let us know your thoughts and everything down below. There's a lot to discuss over the next little while. Tomorrow's game against Philly is an absolute must-win. They've been getting crushed recently. John Tortorella said he screwed up coaching the team, hoping they're not going to come out with a fire. And even if they do, we can definitely beat them. But look, there's a lot we got to talk about soon. That'll do it for this episode of Habs Digest. But if you enjoyed, leave your thoughts on all the things we talked about today down below in this slightly longer episode. Hey, don't say you don't get spoiled. This video is a lot of dense content in here, and I hope you enjoyed every single second of it. I'm Josh Gosse, my co-host Jesse Poirier. We'll catch you in the next one.